Hello, everyone. We got ZVEN getting benched. We got Summer Split just around the corner. We got a bunch of drama between TSM and Golden Guardians. We got LCS stuff. There's a bunch of stuff to talk about. Blue Jay and JNT250 bringing you guys episode 44 of the Clown Fiesta podcast. Let's start with the ZVEN stuff. We will get to everything, guys. There's even some LEC stuff that we'll get to later as well, as you guys, some of you are aware with SELFMADE and Treatz. But let's start with Cloud9 because we're like 4 days away from the split. Maybe it was just announced yesterday, or maybe it was announced today. It was very recent that Cloud9 is going to be benching ZVEN, and I don't think anyone saw this coming. I think that we saw Cloud9 struggle a little bit at MSI, but I don't think anyone walked away from MSI going like, yeah, there's probably going to be some benchings on Cloud9. I think people were still pretty happy with the performance. So how big of a shock is this to you, JNT?
I'm trying to remember the last time that a team in the LCS who won Spring Split then went into Summer Split making a roster change. And I'm trying to think about it because obviously it's a whole different question if you win Summer and then during the long off season like that can make sense. But when there is such a short break between Spring and Summer, it's very surprising to see that the current champions are making a move. But what I will say about the move is it smells like it's not performance based and that it is somewhere along the lines of ZVEN either wanting a break or there being some potential tension within the team after their poor performance at MSI.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Everyone is just left to speculate, right? Because why would Cloud9 would not just come out and say like, yeah, ZVEN's toxic or ZVEN didn't show up to practice on time. Like they're going to be all hush hush about this. And even on Hotline League tonight, Fudge was the guest, and Fudge is like, I ain't saying anything, guys. Like he pretty much stayed away from it, which I wouldn't expect any different. And so yeah, now we are left to speculate, and I agree with you. Like it can't be performance based, and it probably has to be something. Maybe it is ZVEN needing a break, but it doesn't seem like that to me. It seems like because in the announcement, first of all, it was Jack announcing it. It wasn't any of the Cloud9 coaches or anything, but we'll get into coaching in just a sec. But it was Jack that was announcing it, and he said something along the lines of ZVEN could earn his spot back or something like that, which I thought was very curious. That to me made it sound like something made him lose his spot, not, oh, ZVEN needs a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely did notice that as well when I was watching the video, and I don't want to speculate based off of the terminology that they were using, although you can, and that's a fair argument. But let's be real here. ZVEN was basically, it was on the fence between him and FBI being the best AD carry in the LCS in the Spring Split. Some would argue FBI, some would argue ZVEN. I was one for arguing for FBI. But what I will say about ZVEN is, and I've always said this about him during the Spring Split, was he was the most consistent AD carry in the entire league. You could always rely and you could always count on him. And at MSI, you didn't necessarily have that all the time. I think we did point to in a lot of our MSI episodes. We thought that ZVEN was actually, he kind of avoided some blame because of how glaring the issues were in the mid jungle. Because I think, if you go back and watch the games, I think ZVEN did have some pretty poor performances at MSI and were kind of overshadowed by both Blabber and Perks. And not to say that ZVEN was terrible and needs to be replaced, but it does sort of feel like that, Cloud9 is always willing to make these kinds of moves if they think it can better their team in the long term. And, the way that, fans of Cloud9 and Cloud9 themselves need to look at this, this is an audition for King. This isn't like you're going to play for 2 to 3 weeks, and when ZVEN feels like he's ready to come back, he's going to come back. It's like, no, if King can put up a good performance, he could either stay the potential starter for the rest of the split, and until he fails, ZVEN will be sitting there, or this is an audition for him at the start of 2022 for Cloud9, because, we all thought that the Cloud9 roster was sticking together at the end of last summer. That clearly didn't happen, and Cloud9 is always a team to keep their options open and have, a backup at a moment's notice in case they move a different direction.
So to your first point about his performance at MSI, I do think that is partially true, but I would also, like you mentioned how he was overshadowed a little bit by the poor mistakes that Blabber and Perks were making. For me, I would also say one of the reasons why it wasn't talked about as much is because he also had some really good performances at MSI as well. And so it wasn't just like he had bad performances. He had some really good ones, especially to start the tournament. And so that's another reason why we don't think it's performance based. It just can't be, because even though he had a couple of bad games, he had mostly good games, I would say.
Yes.
The second part, which that you and someone, Braden, in the live chat brings up, is that this could possibly be about King. I think that's just like a byproduct or maybe a bonus, if you will. I don't think this is, and some people have thrown around the idea of this is an idea to showcase King and sell him. I just think that's bonus. I don't think that's the main reason that they're doing this, but I can't ignore that this would benefit that, right? If King comes in and has a very good performance, well, now you have a player that has shown he can play at the LCS level when he's surrounded by good players, and well, therefore now that player has value. And C9 has a pretty good history of selling some of their players when they have value, right? So that to me, I think is just secondary, but still a very good point brought up by Braden in the live chat and yourself. I think it's something that we can't dismiss.
It just feels like it's a decision that doesn't necessarily have a poor outcome. Because if King comes in, plays well, and like for what, like let's just say in a hypothetical world, he becomes the best AD carry in the league, or he performs like the best AD carry in the league, Cloud9 can just roll with that. Or if King just has a pretty solid performance and ZVEN ends up coming back in mid or later on in the split, great for Cloud9. Now they have an extra player that they have the potential to sell later down the line. Or, you know what, King goes in, he's not that great. Guess what? ZVEN's coming back in, who already was what most people consider the best AD carry in the league. It just feels like there's not a bad option that's going to come out of this scenario. As you said, it just gives a bunch of extra bonuses to Cloud9, because if it goes right, then they have the option to sell him, they have the option to start him. It feels like there's no wrong answer here. Unless ZVEN is actually tilted out of his minds and maybe he doesn't want to play.
Another thing I want to float the idea of is, and this is still with the King idea, but it's that so often it's talked about the way to have success in North America is to find the best NA players and then look secondary towards your import players. Maybe let's just hypothetical numbers here, right? These are completely arbitrary, but let's say ZVEN is like a 10 out of 10 AD carry and King is a 9. But King is a North American player. Maybe ZVEN doesn't have any interest in getting his green card or whatever it is that you need. Well, maybe now you could have a North American 9 come in for your AD carry, and you could look to another role to import. Maybe they look to replace Blabber, who they find a 10 at jungle, for example. These are, again, I do not think that this is their main focus with why they're making this move, but it could be a bonus, right? If you find out that we actually have a really good AD carry talent that does fall under the North American like import stuff, like he doesn't count as an import. That could just be bonus, right? And so maybe you don't even sell him, and maybe even though ZVEN might be the better AD carry, you could find a better replacement for one of the other roles on the team. I don't know who that would be, but maybe you find an amazing import for support or jungle, or I mean, I don't think they would find anyone to replace Perks, but you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah,
right?
it basically just gives them the option that they now have a little bit more flexibility with their roster in case one of their other quote-unquote North American residents, those being Blabber, Fudge, and Vulcan, were to underperform, and they feel like they need to make a change there because, as you just mentioned, if, you know, ZVEN's a 10 and King's an 8 or a 9, he can come in and then Cloud9 could import another top player from a different region. And like we were both just saying, like, it's just a bunch of bonuses for Cloud9.
Well,
like
and
when you have such a great academy team that you can pull from and bring that talent over to your LCS team, just even think about it. Like Fudge was Cloud9 Academy, Blabber is basically Cloud9 Academy, King is, you know, he's coming in, he was Cloud9 Academy, and they previously had Zeyzal in support, who was Cloud9 Academy as well. And, you know, prior they were doing the whole like Golden Glue Jensen thing, and Golden Glue was Cloud9 Academy. Like there are a lot of premier, you know, players in the LCS that have come from Cloud9 Academy. And a lot of people have mentioned them before, but when you have such a good academy system in terms of bringing up players to become LCS level talent and top LCS talent, it just makes a lot of things so much easier for your organization.
They have a pretty good track record of turning academy players into LCS players, like you say. And someone in the live chat brings up some funny suggestions that, like, I would have said were crazy years ago. But he says, like, Jack buys Canyon Smile, and that's funny. And, like, wait, when does Yanko's contract expire? Like, these are funny things because
he did say he wants to come in to an A, potentially.
2 years ago, I would have said that's crazy. But now that, like, Cloud9 getting Perks would have been crazy 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now it's like anything is open now. You know what I mean? It's like Core JJ came to North America. Well, Perks came to North America. It's like anything is possible. And
And
so
it,
even though those suggestions should be absurd, they're not. Like they are very real possibilities. Do I think they're likely? No, I don't.
it
But
honestly makes you wonder, like, what will the world, or what will the LCS look like if the import rule gets removed? I know there's been a lot of talk about
right.
it, and Travis will constantly bring it up. But like, dude, like that's still a possibility. Like, it's not like that idea has been completely shot down, because it clearly
Right.
hasn't. And like,
Hmm.
imagine just the talent that could come over to the LCS and could be on these various teams if that happens. Because we know we have some big spenders over here,
Hmm.
despite
And
the performances to back that up.
yeah, and another idea that I want to float. So first of all, we said that it could just be burnout, right? Like that's very possible that like ZVEN just didn't really get a break because they went to MSI, and ZVEN's someone that feels like he really needs a break before going hard for summer. If that's the case, sure, but we don't think that's the case because we feel like they would have just said that. But the other one that I want to that I haven't heard anyone say yet, so I apologize if I'm copying anyone, but I haven't heard anyone say this is there was some interview during Worlds. It might have been a Travis one. It might have been with someone else where ZVEN straight up said Blabber did something, and this was not hard flame, guys. I don't want to make it sound like he was hard flaming Blabber, but he did pretty much call out Blabber in a very minor way. I don't want to overblow it, but there's a chance that the LCS team has a rule, or like Cloud9 has a rule, or maybe any LCS team for that matter has a rule that like you never call out any of your teammates in post game. And that could be something that Cloud9 is like, look, like we know like you didn't try to, but like it's a slip up and we have to abide by the rules. We have these rules set in place. So maybe when ZVEN mentioned Blabber in one of the post games after he kind of trolled at Scuttle, maybe this is like, look, like we have to bench you for a week or 2 weeks, and that's just the protocol or the penalty that we have set in place to be able to cover for your teammates.
Just
And I
just to cut in here for a sec, you said Worlds, but you meant MSI. Is that
yeah,
correct?
I keep. Yes, I do mean MSI, and for the record, that's not the first time in my head that I've almost said Worlds this episode.
Okay,
So you're gonna have to keep correcting me for that if I keep saying it. But
I
yeah,
got you.
again, it's yeah. So sorry if I do that again, but I do mean MSI, and again, it's not like ZVEN was like being malicious or trying to call out Blabber or anything. I think he was just frustrated after a game, and I think he was being honest because there were games that Blabber was hard trolling. And so, as someone else says, ZVEN was obviously very emotional still at that point. I completely agree. Completely agree. But sometimes, if there's a rule set in place, you have to enforce it. Otherwise, why is the rule there? And again, this is all speculatory, but it's just something that I thought of. I went, well, maybe they wanted to bench ZVEN, but when you're at MSI, there's no backup AD carry to put in unless you want to put Darshan at AD carry because he was the only extra player they brought. So maybe it was already decided 2 weeks ago or something that, again, we're left to speculate. So that's what we're left with. But it was just something that that thought had occurred to me, anyways.
Yeah, I still think it's very, very interesting, and I think we'll really have to track King's performance. And again, like even though ZVEN is clearly one of the best players in his position, it'd be really hard to just make the decision that if Cloud9 is just rolling on through the split, either undefeated or maybe only one defeat, like 8-10 games into summer split, it'd be really hard to argue like why sub him out and why, you know, make a shakeup to the team dynamic when you're performing so well. It does feel like one of these situations where I think we will see King as long as Cloud9 is winning. I think if
Mm-hmm.
I'll set my prediction out there right now. Like, I think when Cloud9 goes 3 losses or more, that's when we'll see ZVEN back in. I
But
think
what if you see 3 losses by like August?
yeah, I
What if it
mean,
takes until August to see 3 losses? I'm not saying that's likely or unlikely, but what if?
I don't know. I guess my like range would be like if it's like week 4 and they're 9-3, I think we'll see ZVEN back in. But I mean, if they're like 10-1 or 11-1 or 12-0, I don't think ZVEN's coming in anytime soon. I think it's gonna be this. It's gonna be one of those situations where you're just gonna keep playing until you have a bad game or you just like have a bad week.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. Yeah, again, we are so left to speculate, which kind of sucks, but I don't blame them at all for keeping this hush hush. That's just the way it's going to work. Other Cloud9 stuff, though, if it's okay to jump.
Yeah, yeah.
Pardon me?
Said yeah.
Mithy is now going to be the head coach, right? And Rainover is going to move back to an assistant coach role. I think he's going to work more closely with Blabber. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that was a more like understandable move from the fact that Mithy has already had previous head coaching experience, and Rainover has already been an assistant coach and has been an assistant coach on Cloud9 for it feels like I don't remember exactly when he was hired, but I think a year and a half now, since season 10. If I'm correct, he was previously head coaching the academy team before they made the transition. It was either at the start of season 10 or I think it was actually no, it was the start of season 10 summer where him and Westroyce did a little flip flop where they basically swapped roles in terms of their coaching positions. But with the whole situation where Rainover wasn't able to attend MSI with his passport issues, Mithy kind of became the de facto head coach for that period of time. And then with him and Cloud9 citing some mental health, or a battle with some of his mental health, it kind of is just a move that makes sense because you want your head coach to be committed 100% of the time to that position, and that position is, the head coach of their league team, which is arguably the most important position outside of the players on the team. So
Yeah.
it just feels like a swap that makes sense within the context of what's gone on for the last 2 months. And I don't think it's going to bring some big shakeup to the Cloud9 coaching dynamic or affect their standings for the better or for the worse at all, really.
And they've pretty much said in the little announcement that was Rainover and Mithy talking, they basically said that things should stay mostly the same from their point of view.
Yeah, they did say that.
And it is really unfortunate that sometimes mental health gets in the way, but it's obviously something you can't ignore. I think most people are very understanding of that. And so if you have a head coach that's struggling with mental health issues, it's probably just for the best for him to step down, let somebody else take the head coach position, and because they'll probably need to put in more time than an assistant coach would. The other thing that I wonder is, I wonder if this would have happened had Rainover been at MSI, because he couldn't go due to passport issues, or at least that's what we were told. I think that's what we were told, right?
That is what we were told.
Yeah. So now I'm starting to wonder if maybe like they just didn't want to say. I don't know. Again, more speculation. But another thing you and I have said so often on this podcast is we don't like to get too far deep into the how good is this coach or that coach, because we really don't have much to go off of. Like, we could just see the player's performance in game, and you could get much more of an idea of what's happening when you see that. But it's really hard to judge a coach in the LCS when you have no idea what's going on in scrims and stuff like that, which to me is where a coach has the biggest effect, is in scrims.
Mm-hmm.
With that, you want to move on to power rankings? You want to get into some summer split stuff?
Into the meat and potatoes of this.
So I have not seen JNT's power rankings yet, which is the norm. JNT is the one that sets up the stream and whatnot. So I'm really interested to see how ours differ, if they differ at all.
They differ.
They up yet? Oh, they differ. Okay, I get the feeling I know where they differ already. Something tells me it's gonna have to do with taxes. Oh
no,
it's
not
not
like
that different. I thought when differ, I thought it was a CLG thing, because I like to pay my CLG tax.
No, I got confidence in CLG.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by that. And you went 100 Thieves ahead of TSM. That's interesting to me, because I went back and forth on that one. I really did.
Yeah,
they're not that different.
Well, part of my main thinking, and we're jumping to that real quick, but we'll go bottom to top or something. But part of my main thinking with TSM 100 Thieves was kind of going back to their playoff series on the best of 5, and we all know how terrible 100 Thieves was in that series. But like, it was a 3-1, and honestly, they were ahead in early game 3 out of the 4 of those games. And I do think that I do have faith in Reaper that they will be able to make some team improvements. And I think both of us unanimously agree that Abadage is a much improved mid lane piece than their previous ones in Demonte and Brioma. So the way I see it is you roll that with their already strong individual players that they have. And I think, they're better than TSM.
So if we'll stick with that one for now, because there's a bunch of them that I could have gone back and forth. There's 3 of them I think that I could have gone either way on. The one want to stick with the TSM 100 Thieves one. The reason why I almost put 100 Thieves ahead is because I do think they replaced their worst problem, which was Demonte in the mid lane for Abadage, like you just mentioned. However, even though I was very vocal about how bad I thought TSM was during playoffs, I did not think that all of their playoffs was that bad. I thought that at the start of playoffs, their first series against T-Hell, despite the fact that they lost 3-1, I still thought TSM actually looked really good in that series. Really good for TSM standards, that is, because I don't think TSM looked better than Team Liquid or Cloud9, but I did think they looked like a number 3 team coming out of North America. Whereas the rest of the playoffs, I did not think they looked like a number 3 team, a number 3 seed coming from North America. And so I guess the reason why I still kept them up there is because they ramped up over most of the split. They had one good series in playoffs, and then they had two, I think it was two poor ones after that, or maybe three. I guess it was maybe three. But the point is, it wasn't a very long span where they looked bad, and I thought that the summer season, or pardon me, the spring season was a little bit longer, and I thought that they looked better in that. And so I guess my thought process as to how good I thought TSM was there was more longevity in them playing good than there was them playing bad. And I guess the other thing with 100 Thieves is even though I think they fixed, quote unquote, their biggest problem, they had other problems in that roster. Someday has not looked like Someday. Closer has not looked like Closer. And Huhi has not looked like Huhi. The only player that looked really good to me still was FBI. And so for that reason, I actually ended up putting 100 Thieves back under because originally I did have them on top. But yeah, I was really close on that one.
Mm-hmm. You want to just go from the bottom, or do you want to just talk about our
We should say
basically ones where we have swapped?
Go list them off for our listeners so that people, because I guess we weren't being very considerate to our listeners. Go ahead and list them off whichever way you want, just so our listeners know what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah, so for me, JNT, I have C91, TL2, 100T3, TSM4, CLG5, EG6, Immortal 7, Dignitas 8, FlyQuest 9, Golden Guardians 10. Blue Jay has Cloud9 1, TL2, TSM 3, 100 Thieves 4, EG5, CLG6, Dig 7, Immortals 8, FlyQuest 9, Golden Guardians 10, and yes, I don't have the new FlyQuest logo.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm repping the old jersey right now. I still like this one.
Yeah, so the main ones that we agreed on for the both of us were Cloud9 1, TL2. I think that's, for obvious reasons, that's why we have it there.
Top 1 and 2, and then bottom 1 and 2.
Yeah, we both have FlyQuest 9 and Golden Guardians 10. I think that one is at least 9th place is a little bit less obvious. But 10th place I think is pretty obvious to most people. For me with FlyQuest, I just don't have a lot of confidence in any of their players the way that they're performing. I would say the best performing player on FlyQuest is probably either Jose Diodo or Licorice, and I think that Jose Diodo will probably have a more difficult split because it's not going to be as hard farm meta as it was in the spring split, although I do think that the hard farm meta will sort of be here to stay. I think it'll be a little bit more nuanced, kind of like what we saw at MSI with some specific junglers. Obviously, those junglers are way better than the majority of the junglers in the LCS, but the way that you can really punish a jungler in this hard clearing meta, utilizing vision and whatnot.
So the one thing that I'll say is that for me, it's not between Licorice or Jose Diodo. I think Jose Diodo was definitely the best performer. I think Licorice looked a lot worse than we're used to seeing him. He did have some good performances. I don't want to dismiss that, but he looked a lot more inconsistent than we would have seen in the past. So that's one. But I actually thought about putting FlyQuest 10th and putting Golden Guardians ahead of them. For the I know that sounds like a really hot take.
That's a hot. That is a hot take.
The reasons are similar to the 100 Thieves discussion for both of these teams, and it's that I think both of them replaced their worst problem. I think Dreams starting in support is much better than name I can
Diamond.
picture space. Diamond, thank you. And then I think that Niles being replaced by Solo is a very, very big buff for Golden Guardians. I don't think Solo's the best top laner we've ever seen. I do think he is a good LCS top laner. I think he's average. And so naturally, when you're replacing someone that I think doesn't even belong in the LCS, I think that's a pretty significant upgrade. I don't really have much to say about Chime. I don't have a lot of information on Chime, but I do know Newbie didn't look so great either. And so I think like, hey, that's not bad. Like he made another change, but it wasn't enough because I guess there was just so many other problems. So like I mentioned, it's very similar to the 100 Thieves thing, and I had to put them back below FlyQuest because FlyQuest did improve a little bit as well.
Yeah, for me with FlyQuest, I do think that Dreams will be an upgrade over Diamond, but it's hard to put a lot of stock into that move because Dreams only played one weekend in LCS, which was the last weekend of the season, and the only thing we'd seen from him before that was FlyQuest Academy in 2021. He was prior playing on SK and the LEC in Season 10. I do think he's a solid player that will be an upgrade over Diamond, but it's hard to put a lot of stock into a move where we haven't really seen the player for the better part of almost 9 months.
Yep. Yeah.
Or we haven't seen him on a a level, like a good level. Because I mean, do I count academy? Not really.
Yeah, I know I'm with you. I don't really necessarily count academy unless they're like really styling an academy. Then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you've got my interest. Otherwise, not really, not exactly.
Yeah, like I
We've
don't
seen
even
time and
know.
time again. We've seen players that are popping off in academy and they come to the LCS and they're just not so hot. You can look to FlyQuest for examples of that. Quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even think honestly. Like, did not even remember hearing FlyQuest Academy's name even being thrown in the hat in terms of academy standings or their performance at Proving Grounds. The academy teams who I remember were high up in Proving Grounds were like Cloud9, Team Liquid, and
I heard some stuff about EG.
it was
Didn't
EG.
I hear some
Yes,
stuff
that
about
was the
EG?
other one. It was those three academy teams which I remember were the main ones that made it far in Proving Grounds. So
There was there was one more that I flip flopped on. I want to see if you can guess who it is that I actually went back and forth on. I don't think it's totally obvious, but give it a shot,
I have
JT.
no clue. Maybe 1 and 2, honestly.
Yeah, it is 1 and 2. I went back and forth between TL and C9 for the #1 spot. Just to be clear, I don't know if we mentioned this already. This is perceived strength right now, guys. Ignore their records for just remember that just for that sake.
That's
Um,
also part of the reason why I have Dignitas at 8.
yeah, and that's totally fine. Yeah, just because I think King is a question mark. I haven't watched enough Academy to be really all that convinced that, he's going to slide right in and there will be no problems. Even Fudge, who's looked very great as of recent, had a very rough start when starting earlier this split in the lock-in and the start of LCS. And so maybe there are those growing pains, and maybe coming into the split, TL, you could make that argument that TL is the better team, especially since they also brought Cloud9 to 5 games with a backup jungler, and there's that argument as well. But I still went with Cloud9 because I think that Fudge has just gotten better and better and better. But yeah, it wasn't obvious to me. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think it was. I mean, I think it was a little bit more obvious, but I do think it's a bit closer than it probably was going into the season because there is, like you said, that small bit of uncertainty with who knows, maybe King is gonna run it. We don't really know.
Yeah.
The next
And
team. Oh, do you have anything more to say on that?
no, I wanted to move to the next team as well. I think it's going to be what you're about to say. Go for
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna move on because I wanted to talk about Dignitas for a little bit, mainly
Okay.
because I had them at 8th place.
Mm-hmm.
And my main reason for doing that is because I feel like they fell off super hard at the end of the split. They at
Mm.
one point were 10-5 and finished with a 10-8 record, losing the last 3 games of the
No,
season.
no, 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 no. They're 11-7, aren't they?
Are they?
I think they're 11.
I thought they were 10-8.
I don't know. Double check it. Look it up. But I think they're 11-7.
Either way,
Dun, 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 dun.
either way,
Waiting.
I,
Filling time with noise.
I still thought that their end to the season wasn't very good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you were right. They lost. They did lose, or they won their last game of the regular season against FlyQuest, but they previously had 2 tough matchups in that last week against Cloud9 and Team Liquid. But I thought in both of those games they were like pretty uninspiring losses. And same with their playoff series against 100 Thieves, because again, we just talked about how bad 100 Thieves was towards the end of the split, and then Dignitas dropped a fat donut against 100 Thieves in that first series, losing 3-0 with in games 1 and 2 their solo laners not playing very well at all, Fake God and Sligo, and then we all know what happened in game 3 with Dardoch, where he was legitimately inting on stage and was clearly tilted. But for me, it feels like Dignitas kind of benefited a little bit from like the early season magic where the jungle meta really hadn't developed, when Dardoch was kind of doing his A to Z jungle challenge and just playing whatever the hell that he wanted. And like when it came to the actual like hard farm meta of Hecarim Udyr, like he wasn't very good on those champions. Like he wasn't very good on Udyr and he wasn't very good on Hecarim. He didn't really play Hecarim at all. He played a lot of Udyr and wasn't very good on it. So I felt like for me, Dardoch was one of the main reasons why they were performing so well early on in the split. And then to see him fall off super hard towards the end definitely got me nervous for Dignitas moving into the split. And it's hard to like have confidence in a team when they looked so bad at the end.
So I guess the only place that I would disagree with you is that I don't think they fell off super hard, like you say. I do agree that they fell off. I think they looked a lot better at the start of the split. But I still have confidence that this team is better than Immortals, FlyQuest, and Golden Guardians. And so I know it sounds like we're very different as to what we think about this team, but I have them 7, you have them 8. I guess that's the difference between falling off super hard and just falling off a little bit.
Yeah, again, I was a little bit. I was deciding between whether I wanted to put Immortals 8 or Dignitas 8, but my reason for like going with Immortals over Dignitas is I do feel like Immortals has the higher ceiling than Dignitas. I
Just
felt
tell
like
us all that you're a little Immortals fanboy. Say
well,
that.
no, I'm
I'm
not
just
fanboying
kidding,
them.
dude.
If I was fanboying Immortals, I would have put them like 5th or something.
I'm just kidding, dude. I'm
But
just.
but I mean when I saw like basically my point is I felt like we saw a Dignitas' ceiling in the spring split, and yes, it was good, but it felt like that was their peak, and to me it doesn't feel like there's room to go beyond that. And with Immortals, it felt like there was a lot of inconsistencies during the regular split with their bot lane underperforming hard early, and then their bot lane underperforming early on in the split, and then Revenge underperforming towards the end of the split, with Xerxes kind of having some hit or miss performances, although I do think he was pretty solid, and Insanity being pretty solid as well. So I feel like if there is a world where Immortals can be on track through all 5 roles with their players not having like really terrible weekends, I feel like they can actually be a pretty decent team, which is, again, why I had them that one spot above.
Yeah, and one thing I think that I have to be fair about as well is that, and a lot of people have pointed this out, just throughout the whole spring season, spring split rather, but a lot of their wins that Dignitas did get sometimes were just throws from the other team, and so I will have to admit that some of their wins wasn't like they're popping off and smashing the other team so much as it is the other team trolling a little bit. And I don't want to say that that's all of their wins, and oh, they just got lucky. But in some instances, they did get lucky, and I have to admit that, right? So there's some arguments on both sides there. Can you tell me why you got CLG above EG? Let's talk about them a little bit.
I don't know. I guess I'm just paying my taxes early on, I guess. I don't know.
Let's go, paying the CLG taxes, baby.
It's hard because that was the other one that I was really deciding between, was EG and CLG for 5 and 6. EG, they're obviously coming into the season having made a roster move with, God, what's his name? They have a new AD carry. Was previously their academy AD carry. He changed his name, which is why the name is escaping me.
Danny?
That guy, Danny. And definitely no longer being a part of the team. So, I don't know. It kind of felt like I went with CLG mainly due to consistency and, again, how they kind of ended their split. Because I do think that CLG, they had a pretty good end to their split, and it did feel like the team was coming together a little bit.
So they did, but I wouldn't call it consistency, seeing as they beat Cloud9. I think they beat TL and then lost to Golden Guardians in some order or something.
Hey, Cloud9 lost to Pentanet. Anything can happen, brother.
Yes, no, I know. Again, I wouldn't say that. I still think they had a good end to their split. I just wouldn't call it, because that's like Omega inconsistent. Yeah, I don't know how that happens, but it happened. It happened. But no, to your point, I think people continue to underrate CLG. I will admit I am fanboying a little bit, talking about them, just because I don't know. I guess for this year, I've just committed to trying to to cheer for CLG as much as possible, just because this team sucks. This team has had a bad history over the last year or so, and so yeah, I guess I'll admit that I'm fanboying a little bit. But if we want to be serious, they have good players. Like, Finn is a good player. Okay, sure, he wasn't a great top laner in the LEC, but I would still say that he's an average top laner in the LCS, and I still think Brox
He's at least average, I would say.
Yeah, he had a really good end to his. I think he struggled at the start.
Yeah.
Finn did struggle at the start of the LCS, but he had a pretty good split overall, and people kind of just dismiss that. And I think Brox has been looking good as well. I do think Pobelter, I think we've seen his best days pass, but I don't think Pobelter's just running it down by any means. For the most part, that is, and I still think that their bot lane is okay as well. So yeah, I mean, I think you have an average team, and that, to me, they fall in 6. You got them 5. To me, that makes sense that they fall in that kind of area. Yeah. Do I see them winning playoff series? Not really, unless somehow they play against, I don't know, like Dignitas or Immortals or something. But if they finish 5th or 6th, they're going to have to go up against TSM or 100 Thieves, most likely, maybe EG, and I think they lose to all of those 3 teams.
Yeah, it does feel like CLG could be that team that loses to all the top teams but beats all the bottom teams, if you catch my drift. Kind of like how Clutch Gaming was a bit back in the day, where they couldn't always quite punch through and beat those top teams, but we're always looking very good against these bottom teams. For me, CLG kind of feels like their ceiling is going to be like Broxa and Finn, and their floor is going to be Wild Turtle and Smoothie. And what I mean by that is like, if the team is going to look bad, I think it's going to be because of their bot lane, because they are a little bit
Oh,
inconsistent. Wild Turkey is like, dude,
Wild
like
Turkey.
that guy averages a lot of deaths. That's all I'm saying. And
He does.
their top side of the map, as we've seen, is very strong, and I think will only be better because, like, let's not forget what Finn, although he played week 1, basically got there like a couple days prior, and Broxa missed what, the first 3 weeks of the split or something, and they were playing with RJS for like 4 weeks as well. Like, this team's just getting started, and yeah, I think I'm putting a lot of stock in CLG, but I think they're gonna be decent.
Yeah, again, I think they're middle of the pack. Is there anybody that we didn't touch on really?
No, that's pretty much it. EG,
I think
I
we
know we
touched
said
on.
I don't know. EG's just kind of there. I don't know. Like,
I would say that I think Impact still looks really good. He had a very good start to the split, and I don't think he carried that on. I think he was playing so good. I think that's really difficult for him to carry that on for the whole split, but he was good, and I think that's what you're always going to get out of Impact. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I just think that
yeah.
they're
Mhm.
average team as well.
My reasoning, I guess, well, another part of my reasoning for having EG not as high as I think other people could have put them is, like, do you have confidence that Jizuke is going to continue his strong non-coin flippy performances? Because I personally don't. I'm not, like, after seeing a split of Jizuke not be coin flip and actually be pretty good, that doesn't mean like I'm fully ready to say like, okay, he's going to be a good mid laner in the LCS, and he's going to completely lose all those previous tendencies that he had. Because even when we did see Jizuke have good performances, a la Season 8 Worlds with Vitality, he then did not have such a great Season 9 and 10 to follow that up with. So
Mm.
I don't know. It's hard to judge this team because I think, as you said, Impact's super solid. Is Jizuke, who knows, can be good, can be bad, and felt like we talked about part of EG's struggles were Svenskeren and Ignar kind of not being as good as they used to be. And again, definitely just there, and I think Danny's going to be like there.
Yeah, I guess I expect a lot more out of Jizuke and Ignar. I shouldn't say a lot more because I actually think Jizuke was very underrated in the past split. There were some int plays. I can't ignore that. But I think there was so much more good than there was bad. And I think
Mhm.
people like it's hard when you have some hard int plays like
It's
Blabber's
hard to forget
Scuttle at
those.
MSI. It's yeah, how can you not forget that, right? And so those are the plays that people think of. I'm thinking right now of when he shuffled over the wall as Azir over at Blue Buff. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Or
But
he's
like, yeah,
diving mid lane tower as Lucian.
but so, yeah, but so often
Gary.
he was getting leads in the mid lane and getting advantages for his team. And I guess I just saw too much good out of Ignar last year for me to just forget that this guy's Rakan is insane. And so, mind you, you're not seeing a lot of Rakan in the meta right now. But my point is, Ignar is very good at finding flanks for a support, and that's something that I think brings a lot of value to teams. Seeing as there's so many team fights around Dragon and Herald and Baron, like that's just the game of League of Legends, and so often does a flank come into play, and that's something Ignar does very well. So, yeah, I guess I definitely see EG as not being a free team, and I guess that's why I have them in the top half.
Yeah, I think that
Okay,
covers all the teams.
yeah, let's get into where do you want to go? The TSM stuff, the TSM Hunter.
Yeah, we'll
That's
talk
next
about
on the
that.
list?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to give a little breakdown? Do you want me to give a little breakdown
Uh,
of what went on there?
you can pull. You do it. You do it.
It was a little bit confusing, honestly, because there was so much. And so I'm gonna try to do my best to give like the gist of it without going too deep into it. So feel free to stop me if I'm wrong anywhere here, JNT. But by the looks of things, it looked like TSM, being I think Bjergsen and Curry, I think they went out of their way to make their own in-house system. And the Golden Guardians, their head of esports and Hunter Lay, and their general manager Danon, what's his last name? He's just Danon is his like IGN. Um, they didn't seem to be too happy about it, and it looked like from their perspective, it seemed like they thought TSM was giving up on the in-house system that was already put in place. But by the looks of things, it looked like TSM actually had put effort and resources and time into trying to make that system work, but it wasn't working. And so they said, we need to try to create something new. That's the gist of it that I got. And so I don't want anyone listening to take my word as like the word of God, and this is exactly what happened. This is just the information that we're getting from a few tweets, guys. So there's probably a lot more backstory than what we saw come out. In the end, it looks like Golden Guardians owned up to their mistakes. It looks like there was some information that Hunter didn't have before making his tweets and calling out TSM, because he basically called out TSM, and then later on said, "Look, yeah, you know what? My bad, I messed up." And then Danon stepped in and said, "Look, guys, this was actually my fault." The GM for Golden Guardians, he said, "This is actually my fault. I misled Hunter and I gave bad information, and that's why he made these tweets." So that's what it seems like what happened. Is there anything that I'm missing?
Not really, no. It was just kind of like felt like some unnecessary like back and forth that didn't need to happen, and it kind of just all sparked because Hunter was clearly like fairly emotional about
Mhm.
this whole news that, because like let's be honest here, like obviously Golden Guardians is going to be biased to this whole situation because they're the team that sort of innovated and created this whole system, and obviously you're going to get pissed off if one of your
Right.
partners, because like all the teams are partners in the LCS, like you're going to get pissed
Mhm.
off if a team is going to go out of their way to avoid using your product and then create their own, and most likely probably try to recruit all the other people in the league to go use theirs. And they were probably out of fear that like, oh, like it's going to become like now everyone's going to drop ours and use theirs, because I do think that TSM is obviously a bigger name brand than Golden Guardians. And if you're like, oh, do I want to go play in the TSM in houses or do I want to go play in the Golden Guardians in houses, let's be honest here, like you're going to pick the TSM ones. So I did feel like when I was originally reading those tweets, it was definitely like Hunter being a bit emotional about the whole situation. um, and it was just poor out of Golden Guardians, to be honest. Like you kind of said it already, and part of the reason was because like there was obviously some miscommunication between information.
Right.
But like if you're a respected person in your organization, like shouldn't you do that research yourselves before going out and making all these like wild accusations and presumptions about another org? Like it just
Well,
seems a bit like it's funny because we talk about how TSM is always like so terrible in the PR department for their league team, and it was like Golden Guardians took a page out of their book for this one. It felt like.
Well, it seems like Hunter did do his research. Unfortunately, like you would think that your general manager of your organization is a good source, and that's a good guy to go to quote unquote do your research. It just seems like he was given poor information from his GM. That's what it looks like to me,
Like,
anyways. And
yeah, I
that's
mean,
basically what Danon is saying is like, "Yo, like my bad, I misled," or something along those lines. But anyway, yeah.
I guess my point is you would think if you're gonna call out one of, people could argue, the biggest orgs in the LCS, you think you might do like a double check or something before you like tarnish their name or something like that, because like
Yeah.
the TSM fans are not known to be like all happy go lucky.
Yeah, no, it is true. But to your point about like the frustrations coming from the side of Golden Guardians, I do think it is warranted frustration if you think that you've put so much time into this thing and like TSM is just like, ah, screw that, we're gonna go make our own. You probably would be frustrated
For
because
sure.
that's what it seemed like from Hunter's point of view. But again, that's not exactly how things went down, and that wasn't exactly the case. Now, in one of the replies, which had been or has been deleted, I believe, I do think Hunter did bring up a fair point that it had been 6 months or something along those lines. It had been since December that Bjergsen or anyone from TSM had said anything in the Discord about the in-houses, which is like a fair thing. But if you read the message that Bjergsen said, it says we don't have to leave. It said something along the lines of like, we don't have to leave messages in this Discord. We can just, DM each other if we want to make in-houses happen or whatever. So it's totally possible that Bjergsen or Curry or anybody else from these other teams were having DMs all the time about trying to start in-houses. So that's one thing. Aside from all of that crap, the problem that I have with all of this is that this stuff was being brought up May 25th on Twitter. That's the problem that I have with this. Forget all the crap, all the what happened. I don't really give a shit. What bothers me is that April 11th was when the LCS finals were. And this stuff is coming out May 25th. The first thing that I said when I saw that is, what the fuck has been going on for the last month and a half? Like, okay, the season ends, players take a break, right? But what has been going on for a month and a half? Has there been no in-houses going on? That to me is like alarms, big time. Like, hello? Are we not practicing? Has no one been practicing at all? That's what worries me the most.
Yeah, well, the other thing that I don't remember where it was read. I think it was in either one of the TSM tweets or one of the Golden Guardian tweets. Basically, we're saying that the LCS had actually invested some of their own time and resources into the in-house system that was created, but nobody has basically used it since December of 2020, and that any in-houses that have been played have been like player created. Primarily, you'll see players like CoreJJ doing in-houses with a lot of the TL Academy players and a bunch of other various pro players. Like I know CLG is pretty involved in them, and EG as well is pretty involved in them. So that was the other thing that stuck out to me, was that like nobody's using this product anyway, and so that one, that's a problem. But two, it does make sense now that then TSM is kind of going out of their way to potentially recreate the system with, either in a different way or just create the same system with the bigger brand name to hopefully get more players involved.
Okay, so this to me is very closely related to, well, one of the things I have to say about the LCSPA. So I guess I want to ask, did you have anything more to say on the TSM and GG Golden Guardian stuff, or what?
No, I just thought, like, to give my honest opinions, I just thought it was a bit petty out of Golden Guardians. Really, like, it wasn't a good look in my opinion.
So for me, it was just everyone wants the same things, and tensions get heated when things aren't working out. Because I know that the Golden Guardians and TSM are probably all really, really wanting North America to get better and for there to be a better practice environment. And so that's why things get heated when things just aren't working. And so the way I think that this, I want to switch over to the LCSPA stuff now, because the way I think this is so closely related is we mentioned how they are apparently are saying that the LCS was putting some resources into the in-house system. My question would be, how much resources are they really putting in if no one wants to use this, right? That's my wonder. And the reason why I think that's so closely related to the LCSPA is because, well, now there's a new board of members, and so maybe this is something for the LCSPA to focus on. And I would imagine it would have to be, because time and time again, we hear so much about the issues of ping and so many issues that the players have that are just never resolved. And people always just laugh at the LCSPA. And why wouldn't they? Because nothing has ever been done. My question to you is, do you think that having a new board for the LCSPA gives any more chance that the LCS actually puts serious resources into this and maybe sparks a real in-house system?
Yes and no. No, because I think it falls more on the players and the teams end than it does the Players Association. But yes, because there are some very influential players on the Players Association, like Darshan, who's the president, and also Core JJ and Lorlo, who they've brought on as vice presidents for the players side. Um, again, I don't really know what that means in terms of their involvement, but I think they do have three very, very solid and respectable players on that association in Darshan, Core JJ, and Lorlo.
So yeah, the first thing that I go to right away is I'm happy that Darshan is still sticking with it. I do think that even though the LCSPA was a failure before when he was running things, I don't think he exactly had a lot of help. And there was someone like the president or the head or whatever of the LCSPA before who was actually like, he didn't really put a lot of effort into it, and they since let go of him. So my hopes are that we see this new person come in and actually look to make change happen. And I think the fact that Core JJ is going to be involved now means a lot, because we've already seen how often Core JJ is going out of his way to create in-houses, like you mentioned. I think that the fact that Core JJ is on this is just a very good sign for the LCSPA moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean the only other notable person that I think was involved in this whole announcement of the revamp of the LCSPA was Snoopy. If people remember, he was a
Really?
former. Yeah, he's on the board of directors.
I didn't see that part. I missed that. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
So
Okay.
he's the only name that I'll just read out all the names. The new executive director is Phil. What's his last name?
Aram.
Aram, which
Yeah.
is funny
It's spelled
because
like Aram. Yeah.
yeah, there was a joke made on like Reddit how his last name is literally Aram. So I don't know. I just thought that was really, really funny. And then the other people on the board of directors for the LCSPA are Jason Dockton, Stephen Ellis, aka Snoopy, who we just mentioned, Ryan Fairchild, Lauren Gaba Flanagan, and Brian Tran. I'm sorry if I butchered any names there, But Snoopy, the only really person that I know out of that bunch, and I mean, it's hard. You can't really dig into those people, but I feel like it feels like they're adding quality people onto this, which is why it gives me more confidence than the previous ones.
Yeah, definitely me as well. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Travis Gafford giving us a raid. Thank you so much, Travis. You know that means a lot to us. Let's keep with the discussion though. So there was an AMA that came out, and actually Travis is helping us out a little bit more here.
Epic.
Brian Tran, former Riot, Twitch, Blizzard, and CLG. Okay, that's a pretty good resume.
He's been around the block.
I want to talk about the AMA a little bit because there was something that really stood out to me a lot. And there was some questions that were asked during the AMA that I was like, wow, I didn't even know that this is happening like this. For one, one of the questions was, what terms and conditions do you see the in LCS contracts that you'd like changed? Are any portion of player salaries guaranteed? What percentage of LCS/Academy players have representation? ? And he went into 4 things that I want to just focus on three things that he spoke about that I think were very eye-opening. One of them being the termination rights. So he says there are few very broad provisions that provide teams with a lot of discretion in terminating players, including one that's so vague as to almost make termination without cause unnecessary. So that to me is a really big problem, because I just don't think that you would never see this in other traditional sports where players can just have their contracts terminated just like that and just kind of get screwed over. Honestly, that's the sense that I get from it. And so the fact that Ryan Fairchild is here from the board saying this in the AMA is very promising to me. That's one thing. Content rights is another one he talks about. He says right now most contracts are worded so that the team instead of the player owns the right to the content the players makes during the team, including their stream content and so on. And that to me is absolutely crazy that the teams own your content that you're making on your stream. That to me is so whack. And
Yeah,
just things like that really stand out. And
I'm
so
gonna
I
make
really appreciate.
I'm gonna make a reference like way out of left field, but was like a very prominent case of this, and obviously, well, I'll just say it. So if you remember, man, what was this, like a year and a half ago? Like Tfue, like remember when like that whole like situation was blowing up when he was trying to get out of his contract with FaZe Clan? Tfue was like a former Fortnite guy, but there was like this huge discussion when he was trying to get out of his contract at FaZe, and there was this whole situation that was being brought up where FaZe was like claiming that they owned a certain percentage of his content that was being streamed on Twitch, or sorry, a certain percentage of the revenue from his content from all of his various Twitch streams. So I just remember like that situation really reminded me of what they're really talking about right now, because we do have a pretty high profile instance of that in the past, which I hope doesn't happen to any like league pros moving forward. So as you mentioned, I'm glad that they're moving to create some better change for that specifically.
Yeah, and I don't want to bore everyone with going through absolutely everything that was in the AMA. My point of all of this is that clearly they realized that what the LCSPA was doing before was not working for pretty much anyone, and nothing was really getting done. And to me, just through reading through this, I get the sense that the people working for the LCSPA now realize there's some very that the players are facing, and I think that I'm definitely willing to give them another chance. It seems like they're going to take this a lot more seriously, and so I guess I'm excited to see some improvements for the players, and hopefully the hope from fans perspective is to see some improvements in the league, right? Whether that just be for the players' environment or whether that be actually on the Rift and just seeing our teams get better. I feel like having a better LCSPA makes that more I don't know, I guess there's just a higher chance of that happening, and so I guess it gives me a little bit of hope.
Yeah, and as I just mentioned before, it just feels like they have all the people involved have good heads on their shoulders. So I think moving forward, I'm just excited to see what they can bring, I guess.
Yeah, definitely me as well. Just a quick shout out again. So thank you, Travis, for the raid. But I just want to give everyone in chat the opportunity to hit that follow button. And just in case you guys don't know what the hell we are, we do a weekly podcast about the LCS. Hit the follow button. And if you aren't able to watch the live show now and you got to get going, make sure to go subscribe on YouTube. It's the Clown Fiesta podcast on YouTube. You can find us there. Now, you want to get into the LEC stuff because the LEC stuff was a little wonky as well.
Yeah, I think had the Cloud9 news not come out, the LEC was kind of stealing the show this week.
My God, so much crazy stuff happening. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. Just one quick thing, but before we get into it, all the previous Vitality stuff that we had been mentioning, that all got confirmed in terms of like the actual Bippo jungle roll swap That's official. Fnatic acquiring Adam. That's official. The Vitality roster, which was speculated a couple weeks ago with SLT, Selfmade, Lighter, Crownshot, Labrov. That's all good. But basically, the brunt of the EU drama this week was from Fnatic to start, basically with a lot of statements, quote unquote, coming out from both Selfmade and from a, again, quote unquote, reliable person in Fnatic, which is like, who the hell is that supposed to be? Like, what does that even mean? A reliable person? Like, who is that?
It's very vague, but the thing is, I understand why it's vague, because you want to keep that person's identity a secret. So, like, you're not, like, I get why that is, but there's a lot of notable people that have come out and just said, like, this is not reliable. One of them being Yamato Cannon, the head coach of Fnatic. If anybody watched his video on it, he straight up said, like, guys, I don't think this is reliable whatsoever. And so that makes you go, okay, well, now I don't know who to believe, because I'm way more likely to believe the head coach of Fnatic, but there's bias there, right? Of course, you're going to be like, no, everything was fine. Selfmade's a great guy. Like, you're not going to throw any players under the bus, right? And so that's why I'm kind of stuck on this. Like, would Wooloo just come out and say stuff for no reason? I don't think so, but I can't say that I know enough about this guy to really say one way or another. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn on this stuff.
Yeah, so just to give a quick summary, there were screenshots from a Discord chat that Selfmade was talking about, that were posted on the LEC Wooloo account, and that's just an account where they talk about a bunch of various roster rumors in Pro League. But Selfmade claims that Fnatic told Blippo to either play jungle or leave, and then like directly from the Discord message, it says they basically put Blippo in a situation to decide who's going to be out. And then the quote-unquote reliable person said that Niski, Upset, and Hylissang didn't want to play with Selfmade anymore because of him being toxic in both the present and past.
Yeah, now look, I don't want to. This is something, like, don't get me wrong, I love to speculate, but this is one where I don't think it's necessarily fair to speculate with Selfmade, because maybe he was toxic, but maybe he wasn't, right? And so it's not fair to be like, yeah, he was probably toxic, when I have no freaking idea whether he was or not. And so I think that it just looks really bad for Wooloo to come out and say this when there's a good chance that Selfmade did nothing wrong, honestly. With that said, when you're being traded to another team, usually there must have been some issues somewhere. It may not have been on Selfmade side. It very well may have been, but I just don't think it's fair to say one way or another. But we definitely know that this is put to bed now with Selfmade going to a new team. There definitely won't be any Selfmade issues on Fnatic this split coming up, right? So.
I guess because he's not there. The thing that I'm kind of interested about this like Vitality squad is like apparently Selfmade, Lighter, and Crownshot are all like they're all like big friends, like they know each other and they're all friends. So I feel like it's always like an interesting dynamic for a team when they're all friends, as opposed like they're friends first before being teammates. I think that's always a very interesting dynamic and can either be very good or very bad for performances.
Yeah, no, it definitely can, because in one side you could say that maybe they're too comfortable, or maybe they're too good of friends to want to share actual feedback with one another, or you could argue that since they are friends, it's very easy for them to share feedback with one another. So honestly, I would actually say it's probably a good thing, because I think that when you have people that get along so well, I think it is way easier to give the kind of feedback that you need to give, regardless of whether whether you think it should happen or not.
Yeah, you probably feel like you can speak your mind a little bit more because you know you're talking to people whom you get along with outside of the game, and there wouldn't be like any like really awkward tension if there was like a big debacle in like a game or a scrim or a review that would like affect like your out of the team like dynamics and whatnot.
There's just trust, right? That's the other thing too, is that these are people that you clearly trust. You wouldn't be friends with these people if you didn't trust them in the first place. And I think having trust in your teammates is another thing that's so valuable to have when you're an LCS or LEC team. Next up, we had Treatz going into the jungle as well. Someone in the live chat can't wait for us to get to that. And I couldn't wait either. This is whack. This is like, now you've got Bwipo going to the jungle. You've got Treatz also going to the jungle. What is going on in the LEC?
So yeah, like something that was funny was because the Cloud9 news came out after this Fnatic drama and then the SK news. And I legitimately thought, like a lot of other people, thought it was a troll. Like I was walking
was troll.
I was walking my dog, scrolling through my phone on Twitter, and was like, Cloud9 benching ZVEN and Mithy is like head coach now. I was like, oh, okay, lol. And then I kept going. And then I saw like people were replying to it, like Azale replied to it, and other people. I was like, oh, is this like a real thing? So I started watching this video, and I was honestly expecting Jack to just come out with like some troll thing after this intro. But then it was like, okay, this is kind of serious, like 20 seconds in. And then like all of a sudden, Mithy and Rainover are popping up like, oh yeah, like this is happening. I was like, dude, it's kind of crazy. But back to what we are about to talk about, the whole Treatz situation. Treatz playing jungle for SK in summer, and Jesus, their former head coach, moving to support for the summer season.
He's back in again, baby.
I think this is absolutely crazy. To me, this makes absolutely zero sense why, like, I don't even know what I'm about to say. Like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. It just seems so... Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I wouldn't say that it doesn't make sense. I would just say it's so unpredictable and it's so unforeseen that it's like you don't know what to take from this. I think the most unfortunate thing about all of this is that Treatz just had his best split he's ever had as his main role as support. And now you have to follow that up by auto-filling the jungle like it's solo queue or something. That's what I think is so unfortunate. This might very well be the best move for SK moving into summer, and maybe maybe things go well. Am I thinking it will? Not really, but maybe things do go well. But I just think it's so unfortunate that Treatz has to put on hold what I would say was a very good improvement in his career. Clearly, he was so much better in the LEC than he was on TSM Academy or TSM right before Worlds last year. That it was like this was such an important part for his career. And yeah, it just looks like that's going to have to be put on hold. And who knows if that could hurt his career in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's really confusing for me is this is clearly a last-minute change. And like you just mentioned, the spring season ended almost a month and a half ago, or a little longer than a month and a half ago. So like, what really happened between the end of SK season, which was actually earlier on than the finals because they got knocked out earlier on in the playoffs? Like, what happened from then to now, which is they're making this sudden decision to bench Tinks and then move Treatz to jungle and put Jesus in a support? Because in the statement that Treatz released, basically he cited that there were a lot of issues with the SK roster, specifically with Tinks, and they didn't think that it was in their best interest to continue playing him in summer in regards to their playoffs and Worlds aspirations. And it's just crazy to me that they, one, couldn't get a potential jungle replacement for summer split, like an actual jungler, whether that be from another LEC team. Maybe there's a jungler that's getting dropped. Gilius, by the way. Or
well, there was rumors about that, I believe. I think there was rumors that they could go after Gilius, but
I personally
think they
never saw
decided
that,
against it.
I don't know. I never saw that, so I can't say about that.
I did see something, but I believe it was just rumors. There was nothing confirmed, but I did see something about them considering Gilius, but deciding against it, I believe. Don't quote me on that, though.
Well, and any of the regional league teams, because also, like, people, if they don't know, SK has a regional league team with their own jungler. It's called SK Prime. I'm sorry I don't remember the jungler's name, but I looked this up because SK still does have a regional league team. One thing I also wanted to point out was we talked about this maybe a month ago, but basically got announced that LEC teams are no longer required to have a regional league team, which is basically their academy team. They've removed that rule for all the LEC teams. There was previously a vote with all the teams. Rogue was the only team that was not in favor of that decision. And I feel like this is a perfect example of why you should have a regional league / academy team if a situation like this were to occur, because it's just crazy to me that SK1 wasn't prepared for this situation where they couldn't even bring in like a guy straight out of solo queue or something like that, like a completely unknown player. I feel like obviously we don't know. Who knows? Maybe this is like the roster move that's going to save their team and actually could do really well. Like, for Treatz' sake, I hope that happens. But do I think that's going to happen? Not a fucking chance. I think this team is probably I think this team is probably going to be bottom of the LEC. I would say maybe like highest 8th, maybe 7th.
And that's what I think as well, because didn't they just scrape into playoffs anyways?
They were like
when
8 and
everyone
10.
was playing their main role.
They were
this
8
to
and
me
10.
seems like a downgrade to me. So
Exactly.
it's like I don't see this. So if the argument was like we didn't see us being able to make it to Worlds with Tinks or whatever, it's like, well, do you see yourself getting to Worlds with this?
Exactly. Like, you think your Roleswap support going jungle and your coach who, like again, people will bring up the example like Jesus did the exact same thing when he played with Fnatic in 2017. like yeah, like that's cool and all, but this is 3 years later, and he's been coaching for the last 3 years. Like this is a completely different scenario. Someone in the live chat also just said they finished on a 5 game losing streak. I remember because they were 8-5 and then finished 8-10.
Yeah.
Basically, I've never been one to think like how I'm trying to formulate this properly. Basically, if they think that I'll go with your previous example. If Treatz is a 10 out of 10 at support, and he's like an 8 out of 10
Hypothetical numbers.
yeah,
Hypothetical
these are
numbers
all
here.
hypothetical numbers. But if Treatz is an
Okay,
8
yeah.
is a 10 out of 10 support and like a 7 out of 10 jungle, and Jesus is like a 7 out of 10 support, like I don't feel like that is the best solution as opposed to keeping Treatz as support and bringing in like a 5 or a 4 out of 10 jungle, because I think there's the greater chance that your jungle will improve and get better than Treatz having to move to jungle, then have the learning curve of jungle, playing against all these other top LEC junglers. And we can admit, like, there are a lot of great junglers in the LEC. Like, let's not roll over that. Like, Diankos, Inspired, Elyoya, like, who knows, Bwipo might be, like, good at jungle. Like, we don't have to know. But, like, my point is, like, it's not, like, an easy positional group out there in the LEC in terms of jungle. And like you just mentioned, Treatz is coming off the biggest, his best performance of his career in terms of his split long performance. And it just feels like he's getting like the short end of the stick here.
The last thing I'll say on it is it's not like we have more information than they do. Obviously, they have all the information that they need and they end up coming to a decision. The reason why we're just so puzzled with this is because never in a million years would I have guessed that this is their best option that's available to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, it's not that I doubt that this is their best option. It's just I would have never guessed that this is their best option, I guess is the way that I look at it. And I think that if they struggled with their roster when everyone was playing their main role, and now you're subbing in your coach who, I don't know when the last time Jess has played, but it was quite a while ago. And same thing with Treatz just swapping over to jungle. This is just, I don't have a good feeling about them going into summer split. And I would say their summer split is Monka S, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think the last time Jesus actually played was like, yeah, he hasn't started since Fnatic 2017 after they went to Worlds.
That's even longer than I thought it was.
He was a sub for spring 2018 and then went to coaching in summer split of 2018 to Misfits.
And who knows? Maybe because we're pretty sure that Treatz isn't committing to jungle long term.
Yes,
he's just filling in for as long as he needs to be, right?
He said that in his statement that he put out on Twitter that he's not going to be committing to jungle long term, and it's obviously just a short term solution that they obviously feel like gives them the best chance. I would say considering the circumstances, because it seems clear that this was pretty much their only option. It's hard to say, but it does feel like I would think that Treatz is probably making this move to basically stay in the good graces of SK, because it probably will like I don't know, like what's he gonna say, like no, I'm not role swapping, and then what's SK gonna do, like cut him or like get an additional option? Like I just wonder what it would have looked like if Treatz said no, I'm playing support or you get rid of me or something like that.
You know what? That's something that I actually should have, or that we both should have probably said. Honestly, huge props to Treatz for doing
like
this, actually.
That's why I say you got the short end of the stick. Like,
yeah, I'm so mind blown that this is happening, but it completely clouded my vision as to like, wow, I can't believe Treatz is willing to do this. So I mean, huge props to him for being literally a team player. That's what a team player would do right there.
Like, who knows? SK could have given him like the ultimatum, like kind of like you're playing jungle, like you're not playing because like we don't have any other options. So,
but then they put in their coach. Into
that's what I mean.
Role,
like, dude, like. I honestly, I truly think that there was literally zero options for this team. It was like, hey, we're either going to be like playing with 4 people on stage or we're doing this. Because like, I'm telling you, there has to have been a better option than this. There just has to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
I feel bad for Treatz because I like the guy. He plays Jarvan. He played the J4 support game in spring. He was beasting out on it.
I love the memes that it was all Selfmade's fault. Like everything's
that meme is actually really funny.
Good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Bjergsen coming out saying he retired because of Selfmade. Selfmade's toxic or something, so it made him retire. That's not exactly what it was, but anyways.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the LCS stuff, because LCS is starting this Friday?
It's Friday, yes.
It's gonna be Friday.
June 4th.
They changed some of the times though, right? Let me look up the schedule here.
I don't think they did.
I think they changed Sunday. Let me look up the schedule. Let me see.
Really?
This. Okay, so Friday they start at 6 p.m. EST, so that'll be 3 o'clock on the West Coast. Saturday starts at 5 p.m. and Sunday 4 p.m. So each day is an hour earlier. So for I guess for on the West Coast, Friday is 3 p.m., Saturday 2 p.m., and then Sunday 1 p.m. Each day goes back an hour. I don't exactly know why, but anyways, are you gonna pull up the thing so we can make
Yeah,
our
yeah.
predictions?
And
right.
yeah, okay. I'll just throw them up.
While JNT's pulling them up, I do have to give him props. I think we're gonna restart fresh for summer,
Yeah.
but I will give him the huge shout out that JNT. I will remind everyone, JNT did take the victory over myself.
Boom.
Oh, he still got the records there
Boom.
over myself in the spring split.
We'll do a reset.
I will not stray away from paying my CLG taxes with my predictions, or at least I'll try not to. I say that, but I don't even know who CLG's playing yet. I'm going to do my best to stick with CLG, and yeah. Anyways, let's get into them. So, okay, they're up on the screen. Go ahead, JNT.
First game, TSM versus Team Liquid. I thought it was a little bit weird because I feel like they normally do the finals rematch as the first game of the split.
I thought they do that as well, actually.
Yeah, but Cloud9 does play Team Liquid on Sunday, but I just thought that was weird that it's not C9TL because I thought that's what they always did. It's what they did at the start of spring 2021. The first match was FlyQuest TSM. Whatever. First match, TL TSM, Team Liquid.
I'm going to take Team Liquid. I got nothing fancy to say. I think they're better.
Evil Geniuses versus Dignitas. It's weird. I'm gonna take Dignitas just for the fact that I feel like this. I just have the feeling that Dig is gonna win early on and fall off late. Like
okay, so you put them 8th in your power rankings.
Yeah, bad.
Hey, I have no problem with you taking an upset. I think that should be more encouraged. So I know it seems like I'm shitting on you for taking an upset here, but I think that's props. I am gonna take Evil Geniuses.
Okay, well,
hopefully I don't get screwed over for that one. I wouldn't mind if Dignitas won.
Yeah, Golden Guardians, Cloud9. I feel like Cloud9 obviously. 100 Thieves versus Immortals. 100 Thieves.
Yep.
CLG versus FlyQuest. We got the new FlyQuest logo up here.
I'm paying my taxes, baby.
Same. I feel like in like the first 2 weeks of these new predictions for the start of the season, I will have picked CLG more times than I did the entire spring split. Because I feel like I almost never picked CLG. And anytime that I ever did, I was always pissed about it.
I mean, I was always pissed about it, but I continued to take CLG.
Okay.
I will continue to do that, although it's not exactly a huge, crazy take here. But I'm taking CLG over FlyQuest. All right, Saturday games, go.
TSM versus EG. TSM.
Should I take my first upset? Okay, you've inspired me. You've taken one already. I'll take EG on this one.
Dignitas versus FlyQuest. I'll take Dignitas again.
I just Sir Gray in the live chat did say, don't forget it's Shiro's first game in the LCS. I like that.
It's Danny now.
Yeah, but I know who he means.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm taking EG for that one. Okay, Dig and FlyQuest. Yeah, I'm gonna take Dig.
C9 versus 100 Thieves. Could be a bit of a banger. I'm gonna take Cloud9 still.
Yeah, I mean,
it's tough,
early
though.
on,
the OS ADCs.
It is tough because we don't have a lot of data on King. And I mean, honestly, we don't have a lot of data on Abadalgate, but I think that's actually a good thing for 100 Thieves because it could only get better, right? In the mid lane,
yeah,
kind of. It has to only get better. So maybe that's a good thing that we don't have data for the mid laner 100 Thieves. Anyways, I'll shut up now. C9 next.
Okay, CLG Team Liquid. You go first.
I can't do it. I can't pay my taxes here, man. I can't pay the CLG tax on this one.
Alrighty.
Team Liquid.
Team Liquid as well for me. Golden Guardians versus Immortals. That's kind of a banger. I'm gonna take Immortals, but
a banger, you mean Clown Fiesta, as it's so fitting?
Yeah, prediction. It's gonna be a 40-minute banger, this one.
I hope so. That'd be sweet. I'm taking Immortals.
Okay, Dignitas versus 100 Thieves. I'll take 100 Thieves.
Wait. Can I go back and take Golden Guardians?
Yes, you can. You've taken Golden Guardians now. Next match.
Oh, okay. I'll take Golden Guardians. Let's fucking go, baby. Man, it looks like I'm going to be paying Golden Guardians tax as well this summer. All right. Dig and 100 Thieves. I'm going to go 100 Thieves.
Same. EG versus FlyQuest. EG for
EG.
me? Okay.
Yeah. Evil over good.
Now this is the one that I'm interested in for your answer. And I'm going to let you go first for this one. Cloud9 versus Team Liquid. Who are you taking?
I'm gonna take Cloud9. I'm thinking the reason why I used to be so difficult. This matchup used to be so difficult for me is because I always thought C9 was mostly the better team, but the top lane matchup was such a there was such a I don't know what the word is, but a gap. But FUT has looked so fucking good lately, and I don't think there's that top lane gap anymore. And so it makes me feel a little bit better about taking Cloud9.
I'm gonna take Team Liquid. I regretfully will
Wow.
pick Team Liquid, mainly because history shows that TL consistently beats Cloud9 in the best of ones. And that's my only reasoning for taking Team Liquid. Because I think they're pretty equal in terms of skill right now, with King coming in and Santorin kind of coming back in because he missed out for TL in finals weekend. Yeah, I'm going to take TL mainly because I think it's best of one. They're going to get the draft advantage, and they're probably going to win.
Okay. TSM Golden Guardians. I'm going to take TSM.
Yes, me too.
I can't take Golden Guardians twice, man. There's no fucking way that's happening. CLG Immortals. Taxes being paid again. CLG, baby.
Huh. I'm stuck on this one.
You want Immortals. I know you do.
I do, but I'm going to join you and pay the taxes.
Okay.
So I'll take CLG.
All right. JNT and I are paying our taxes this time around. That's it for game predictions. Now, let's get into some quick news. There's been some small little things that we need to go over that happened this past week. The first one is FlyQuest rebranded. I am wearing the old FlyQuest jersey. RIP to this logo.
You just saw the new logo. What do you think of the new logo? I think it looks all right.
I think
it goes with the brand. It goes with the brand.
I like it. I like it a lot. Honestly, at this point, I think they should just drop Fly. There's no reason for them to be FlyQuest. Maybe someone could tell me. I don't know if there's someone in the live chat that knows why Fly is even there. Yes, they do quests all the time. You're saying quest? ? What the hell is Fly? Where did Fly come from? It sounds like an airline. Quest sounds better to me, and they do a bunch of quests. I think the rebrand is pretty damn cool. I like the new logo. I like their new little Sunny quest initiative. But I think they kind of missed out because they're doing like Ocean Drag still, and it's a Sunny quest. Hello, it's a big ball of fire. But anyways, they should have done Infernal Drag. But
now that you mention it, they do sound like an airline if it's FlyQuest.
Yes,
like it does. It does.
I don't think I'm the first one to say that.
I personally have never heard that, but it's funny.
Maybe I'm the first one to say, but I don't think I was. Anyway, they sound like an airline.
Okay, someone in the
esports org.
Sir Gray in the chat just said Quest Gaming. Would you have it as Quest or Quest Gaming? Because I feel like if it's just Quest
Esports.
I don't know.
It sounds like Questy, like Questy Sports.
I don't know. Weird champ. Just keep FlyQuest in my opinion.
Maybe you could just call it Quest. I mean, that's got to be taken. Wasn't there like a dating app or something called Quest or something? Was it something else?
I don't know what apps you've been using, but not me. All right.
Anyways, Quest sounds cool to me. Just like Cloud9. It's not Cloud9 Esports or Cloud9 Gaming. It's just Cloud9. Quest.
Okay. Next up, some LPL roster stuff. Shadow, former Mad Lions jungler who was not playing on a team this past spring split, is apparently rumored to go to LGD. And they're also, LGD is going to be bringing back GA and Mark, whom were on their 2020 roster, who went to Worlds, who did all right. So yeah, that's pretty interesting.
LGD struggled a little bit in play-ins, right? Like they still made it through.
They lost early, but then they had.
Expect any Chinese seed, especially a 4th seed, to go in and just wipe through playoffs.
Yeah.
Or through play-ins rather. Wipe is not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look up.
Struggled a little bit.
I'm gonna look up quickly where they finished in spring because I just want. Oh, they were not very good. They were 14th.
Yeah, they were bad.
They were 4-12.
No, they were bad. The big thing for me is Shadow, because I think this guy deserves to be playing pro somewhere. Like, okay, he had some good and some bad. Like he struggled a little bit at Worlds last year in play-ins. Mad Lions didn't make it out. But this guy is a good jungler, man. He has not been around long enough to say he's had his chance. And so I think it's just troll that this guy wasn't even playing in spring somewhere, especially when we know there's a lot of LEC teams that could use some junglers right now. Back to the Bwipo and Treatz stuff. Why isn't this guy playing for one of them? Anyways, it looks like he's going to LGD, so there you go.
And he was kind of rumored previously to go to China after he was kind of kicked from Mad Lions, and I think a lot of COVID issues kind of stopped that, and I guess now that things are turning a little bit into the world's favor potentially.
I hope we get to see him again at some point. LGD was really struggled in spring, so I don't think we'll see him, but hopefully in the future we get to see him at Worlds or something again, because he was easy to cheer for. I liked him a lot. Anyways, next
up, Doublelift put a video up on his YouTube page talking about a little bit about the NA ping problem in terms of solo queue, and I think he spoke very briefly on some of the in-house stuff, but mainly in his video he was talking about how for solo queue, one of the potential fixes that they could implement is something similar that they have in Valorant, Riot's shooter game, is how the server location of the game is based off of the players who are in the game. As if the majority of the players in the game are on the West Coast, it'll be some sort of West Coast servers. Majority of the players on the East Coast, it'll be an East Coast server. Or if they're all spread around, it will try to be put as central as possible to make the ping as equal across the board.
So we've talked about this a little bit before, so I don't want to go too deep into this. And also, people have just talked about NA ping a million times. Like, another reason why I don't want to go too deep into it. The only thing that I'll say is it's a good question to ask. Like, why can't this happen? And has Riot really explored the possibility of making it happen? That's what I would want to know. How likely it is for it to happen or not. I think it's a good question to bring up again, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it feels like if that is a viable option, it should happen because it already is happening. You know what I mean? Like it feels like it's not that hard. Okay, well, sorry, I shouldn't say it's not that hard. I would think it's not that hard to implement that because they already have that in their other game.
Yeah. And the question would be like, since LCS is so, or rather, League of Legends is so implemented, maybe they just feel like they don't have to. They've already found a way to monetize it so well, and so they're more focused on trying to grow their new game and trying to make sure that they're able to monetize that. And by making the player's experience better in Valorant, maybe that's how they make Valorant a legit game, kind of, so to speak. But anyway.
Next up, this was kind of interesting that I wasn't really expecting at all whatsoever. There's going to be live audio coverage of the LCS for summer and the playoffs from a service called League Day.
So here's my take on it. I'm glad they're trying something new. I don't think it's going to be around very long. And maybe I'm just too biased and I'm too focused on my own thing. I don't want to listen to LCS. I want to watch LCS. So maybe there's something about this that I'm missing. Is it just like listening to a something on the radio, like listening to a hockey game or a football game or something? Is that what it is?
I would assume it's something similar to listening to professional sports on the radio. I've done that in the past, like if I was ever in the car or something. So it's good at least that if I was ever in a situation where I wasn't at home watching the LCS and I was potentially on my way home to watch the LCS, that I could pull it up on my phone while I was driving and listen to it.
It just seems so niche. Right?
It's very niche.
But again, I'm glad they're trying stuff. Do I think it's going to stick around long? No. My thoughts are, if you couldn't get ProView to work, mind you, you had to pay for ProView, but if you couldn't get ProView to work, I don't think you're going to get this to work. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to withhold judgment. But anyways.
Next up, Reggie, TSM owner, is on Twitter and tweeted out, "Feels like it's time for a change."
Perfect.
What that means?
That is carrot on a stick. That is just that is worm on hook. That is just bait. And maybe it is something real. Maybe maybe they've got something that they want to do. Okay, if you're just trolling, I really hope he told his players, like, guys, I'm going to tweet this out. Don't worry, we're not making any changes. Because if I'm a player for TSM, I don't know if this is for sure like bait or if it's like joking, haha. And I think you don't need to put your players under any stress for no reason. So I hope that his players are very aware of what this meme is supposed to be, if it's a meme.
I feel like he was just probably jumping on Twitter because there's a bunch of drama going on and he was trying to farm impressions or something.
Someone in the live chat says he's bringing in SELFMADE. Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
You know,
that would actually be hilarious if this is legit, like a big change that he's got in mind. But yeah, for now, I think it's bait. I won't touch it until I hear something real.
Next up, Winthrop University won the 2021 College Championship, the CLOL. We've been in that. We know all about that. They beat Maryville, who was the previous winner of the tournament. I thought that was actually kind of interesting / cool, mainly because Maryville is like a team that's fairly known in the whole scene because of their previous win.
Yeah, because they've
and
won.
Because they have a lot of like former academy level players have been on their team, and this Winthrop team, whom me personally, I didn't know anybody on their team, so that was kind of cool that the perceived underdog went up and beat the school who I would assume has more resources invested into the LoL program than the other one.
So who are the players that were from Maryville? There's Niles
Mary,
and Iconic, and then there was
yes,
Value, right? Was Value from there, or is he
yes,
from somewhere else?
yeah.
Who else am I missing? Is there anyone else?
Let me look. I'm on
I'm sure
their.
there's other guys because I've only named 3 out of 5.
I can look at their former. So yeah. They had Value, they had Niles, they had Abu 222. They had Prototype.
Oh, that guy.
I recognize
Okay.
that name. They had Cat Ears. I recognize that name. They had Papa
Yeah.
Chow. I recognize that name. That's about it.
Andy's finest in the chat saying he thinks Shady was there as well.
Well, yeah, Shady is. Then I was gonna name like their current roster, like the main
Okay.
former.
Oh, is he
like,
there right now?
yeah, Shady was on the team
Shows
right
how much
now.
I follow.
The Odd Orange is their starting jungler, who was a former
Oh, okay.
Academy
Yeah, I
level
know
player,
Odd Orange.
and Chippies, who was a former OCE player, was their top laner.
Okay.
I think he was on like, oh man, I want to say he was like either on Dire Wolves or like one of the other those teams. I don't know, some team like that.
Oh, okay. And Sir Gray in the live chat helping us out a bit here as well. Hybrids and Saskio played for Maryville, but they're now on Winthrop.
So they got their revenge. Epic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it seems like. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, you and I, we're not going to pretend we don't follow Academy or Collegiate all that much, if we're being completely honest. So
Well, I don't follow
thanks
Collegiate at all. So
yeah, well, thank you for the help in the live
Yeah,
chat with that one. Okay, go
uh,
ahead.
I was just gonna say it's cool to see the lesser named players win, especially in that kind of a level
Yeah.
where like there's a lot of resources and money and time invested into a certain school, and it's clear, you have some unnamed talent on the other side that takes them down. Next up, for the LCK, they are now going to be playing their matches offline again at the LOL Park with the players on stage there and with an audience as well, which is very interesting.
That's just a cool little thing. Like that's not like that's not groundbreaking or anything like that. But Wall Park is pretty cool, and so I'm glad that the players are going to be back there. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and they built that place like only a couple of years ago, and it pretty much has been out of service for a whole year. Like after they had just recently built this thing and started using it. I think they started using it and I want to say it was either spring 2019 or summer 2019. But yeah, it's good to know that it'll actually be getting some use again.
Yeah, I think that's pretty exciting.
Last up, something that Travis announced today, which he then had to revise quickly because there was an error, but he was basically made a video and a tweet about the LCS average annual salary for the spring split specifically, for all the teams, and then how much of that how do I explain this? The LCS average annual salary spent per win. That's what it is.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll read the revised list now.
Not including buyouts though.
It's just average annual salary. Right. Travis originally put a YouTube video up and a tweet about it, and then had to revise his information because there was some error. He said this on Hotline League. I don't think as of right now, or not from what I've seen, he's made another tweet or video about this. I think he said it's happening tomorrow. But on Hotline League, he said the new order, going from top to bottom, is Dignitas, Immortals, FlyQuest, 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians, Team Liquid, EG, TSM, CLG, and Cloud9. So that means, just for, if you didn't understand what I said before, honestly, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. It means that Dignitas spent the least for the amount of wins that they got.
Well, and you divide it by 11, right? Because they had 11 wins.
For each win.
Yeah, and I guess the no surprise for me. I predicted Cloud9 to be dead last anyways, even though they finished first. We knew they paid a bunch of money for that roster, right? So not a big surprise there. Was there any other standouts for you?
I thought CLG being 9th was kind of surprising, considering that they only got 5 wins in spring.
Yeah,
and that must mean that they probably still spend a good chunk on their roster. And I wouldn't be like,
well, the fact that they got only 5 wins that's why they're down there. If they would have got more wins, it would have been they're paying less per win, right?
Yeah, but they only got 5 wins. But like a team like FlyQuest, what I'm saying is like a team like FlyQuest, who also only got 5 wins, is in 3rd place. So CLG is clearly spending a lot more than the bottom teams to get those results. But do we think that CLG is a better team than their 5-13 record shows? Yes, and I think they'll do better. It was just surprising to see that
the split with all of their players. Let's remind people of that as well. So I mean, that just sucks, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
The Brock's a curse.
Unlucky for him. Yeah, he just whenever he gets new team, new region, a little bit of visa problems.
Yeah. Anyways, definitely recommend you guys go over and watch that video on Travis's channel.
Well, I don't think he released a new video yet. I think he took
He's
the other
going
one
no,
down.
but he's going to. I was
Oh,
just gonna say,
tomorrow. Oh yeah.
he's going to release it tomorrow. We're recording this Monday night. By Tuesday, probably afternoon, I'm guessing. I don't know. He's got to let an editor get to it, but definitely go check that out, and you can see. He'll probably give more information along with it. I know in his original video he did, but yeah, definitely interesting to see some of this stuff. And I'm pretty happy that Dignitas was number 1 on the list, being an all North American team. That's like, yeah, not bad. Good job. Thumbs up. All right, is that everything?
Yep.
That is it for this episode. Thank you so much again, Travis, if you're still here. Thank you so much for the
He's
raid.
not here.
I mean, still want to give him a shout out anyways. We do always appreciate his support of our podcast channel, whatever you want to call it. He's been great to us, so thank you so much, Travis. If you are in the live chat, remember to hit the follow button. We go live every Monday night, same time. It's right after Hotline League. For those of you that are listening live. And if you do want to catch the show, the VOD, we upload it to YouTube almost right after the show. J&T, huge props to him for that. He usually
About
gets
an
the VOD
hour
up
after this.
pretty damn quick. So if you guys missed the first part of the show, go over to YouTube, hit subscribe, and it will show up in your feed sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. We usually get to it ASAP. And so thank you guys one last time. Appreciate you all. This has been episode 44 of the Clown Fiesta podcast. See you guys next Monday.